Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so a couple of announcements. First of all, about the exercise in general, the MyLab questions. I've had some questions about them, and I feel like some are a bit advanced compared to what we have time to see during the lectures. So usually how this class would work, I assume, is you get the lecture, then you see what exercises you have to go through, and then you see them in TA sessions, for instance. So now, obviously, we can't do that online. So how it's working is you get to try as many exercises as possible on MyLab, and yeah, they might be more complicated than what we've seen in class or numerical applications of what we've seen in class. Of course, I would like to do more numerical applications, but yeah, it's a very wide diversity of questions, and it's difficult for me to just imagine how, given the time we have, I could see all of them, because we always have to move on with the new material. So I recommend what you should do is attend the lecture, try and do all of them. And then if you get stuck, or if you feel like you don't have some specific info that you would need to do one of them, which is perfectly possible, then go in the dropping center or come to to my sessions. So on Monday, Wednesday, or Fridays. And I'll try to help you as best I can. Okay, that's about the exercises. Now about midterm. So I'm sure a lot of you are interested in, I've got your attention now, midterm. So it's chapter 1 to 5. I have some info. It's going to be 50 multiple choice questions to be completed in 75 minutes. The overall session is 90 minutes to allow you to connect and have, if you have technical difficulties or stuff like that. So you're allowed to use, of course, a calculator and scrap paper, but nothing else. I'm going to hide the material from the Moodle page. The exam is obviously on Moodle. So you're going to click on it and be able to do it. So it should look like what we've been doing so far. Yes.
You said how many questions?
50 multiple choice questions to be
50.
completed in 50, yeah, 50, yeah, to be completed in 75 minutes. So that's quite a lot. So I don't know, I've not tried it, of course, but really my best advice for you is just do what you think you should do, which is to cram. So practice, do the same question all over again many times to get all the possible iteration of the same question, and then you become fast. So a bad thing sometimes is people know in 75 minutes. 50, okay, yeah. Let me write it down. Okay. All right, here you see. Oh yes, sorry, I'm writing it down on my, okay, so I'm going to write it on the chat. All right. Yeah, so as I was saying, something that not very good that some students may do is they may do the exercise once and they think, oh, well, that wasn't too hard. I kind of know this stuff. I can figure it out. Bad idea. Even if you think you know it and you're good with it, you have to be fast. That's the key to. It's like I don't know, IQ tests. So each question is relatively easy, but they throw so many at you, and they look at whether you're able to do all of them or not. So I would say time is of the essence. Yeah, I'm not too sure about the time of the day, but I think it sounds about right. Don't take my word for it. Verify. Okay, so yeah, one thing. It may happen that you get some technical difficulty or something, and your screen freezes or whatever. If that happens, do not do the following. Oh, click, 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 open a new window and click again and click again. Once you start doing that, so there's going to be 2,000 of you at the same moment. So if you start just sending so many requests to the server at the same time, it's going to freeze for everybody, and it's going to be a total mess. So if that happens, just be patient, and yeah, and we are going to figure it out. But yeah, so try to remain calm. For those who have extra time, it's based on, yes, it's going to be on Moodle. For those who need extra time, it's based on the 75 minutes, not the 90 minutes. And yeah, that's about it.
I have a question for the mentor.
Yeah, go ahead.
So what if we understand the material of the PowerPoints? Do we have to read the book as well?
I'm never going to say don't read the book, of course. But depends. I myself, I go over the slides, but then once in a while I have doubts about what they mean exactly. So I go and read the book about it. So yes, of course the book can be useful. My take is, what's your best studying strategy? So I would say your best studying strategy is do as many MyLab questions as possible. If you bump on one, then go to the slides and go to the textbook and see exactly what they mean. So that's my best advice for you. In the book, they have numerical examples, they have other things. So it's definitely a good idea to do it. It's just some people think, oh, I'm just going to read the book and it's perfect. And then they kind of forget what they just read. So you have to be concentrated when you read it.
So is everything like what's in the book? Is it all in the PowerPoints?
The PowerPoints are strange. So it looks like it's about the same thing, but then sometimes you have one slide in which it packs like so many information that yeah, I would need more time to discuss it, and I'm not sure exactly how deep they're going to go into the exercise based on this. So to really know how they weight every subject, it's good to see how much explanation they spend on the subject in the book.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I also had a question about the test.
Yeah.
Is it best on the book that we're reading?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Just to make sure. Thank you.
Yeah, one last thing before I forget. You can decide not to write the midterm if you don't feel secure or whatever. But if you do, then all the weight is automatically transferred to the final exam. You don't have to write to me or to anybody else to tell us I'm not going to write the exam. It's just don't write it. And we assume by the fact that you didn't write it, that you would like the weight to be transferred to the final exam. Is it curved? I don't know. I think it's made so that the class average is like 75%, so that you don't get too many A's. So yeah, but I don't know the detail about this. It's 2,000 students, so I don't get to decide how they're going to handle if like everybody fails or if everybody has 99%. Who knows? We're going to figure it out at that point. Is there a penalty for wrong answers? I don't think so. Again, I'm not the one who's writing it. I haven't seen it yet. We're going to have drafts of it in the coming days, and I'm going to see it. Yeah, chapters are 1 to 5.
So will we have a review?
Not in class for sure. Yeah, it's just so much material and so little time. So sorry, I'm not going to spend a whole class on that. I don't think there are attempts. You have one shot at answering, but I think you can go back to. So if you're unsure about your answer, you can go back and change it. Is there a MATLAB thing to review for the midterm? What do you mean? Is there? So yeah, it's going to look. We're not making you practice on MyLab and do all these things for nothing. It's going to look a lot like it. Yeah. So oh, is there a practice exam? Not that I'm aware of. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. The labs are similar to the exam. Yeah, so the results should be given like in the middle of the week after that. Is it proctored? Not sure, because you are a lot of people. So if we have to proctor 2,000 people, that's yeah, lots of. So yeah, not sure about this. Yeah, it's a mixture of like what we've seen in MATLAB. So multiple choice, some. Okay, so for all these details, I don't want to say anything because I haven't seen it. And once I see it, I'm going to be able to be more precise about what I'm saying. Of course, I'm not going to tell you what question they are, but I can tell you more what it looks like. I'm discovering it at the same pace as you are. All right, so any last question maybe? Okay, so we can start with today's lecture. So another very important topic for today, that is for consumer behavior. Usually we start with that. Yeah, but here it is. So what we're going to see here is how people decide. So up to now, we've seen something like the demand curve. So we have our quantity, price. And then what we see is that usually when the price is higher, the quantity is lower, and when the price is lower, the quantity is higher. Why is that? Why do people buy more stuff when the price is low? Well, that's because they like consumption, and prices are constrained for them because they don't have an infinite budget. So we're all going to see these in more detail. We'll introduce the notions of utility maximization. We'll look at more specific type of good. And then we're going to see that demand or willingness to pay is linked to a notion that is consumer surplus. That's actually even, I would say, more easy to understand that total surplus that we've seen before. And in the end, paradox of value. All right, so utility is the satisfaction that consumers receive when they from consuming goods or services. So somebody know who invented this concept? No? Not economists, because back then there were economics didn't really exist. So it's philosophers. So I have a quote there, Bentham. So it's Jeremy Bentham. He was trying to figure out a way to. So it was back in the time when people just were figuring out how all the world could be measured, and there was the scientific revolution, and then they were saying, oh well, human happiness could itself be quantifiable. So Bentham has a conception of utility. It's whatever pleasure or advantage or happiness or life satisfaction you get from the goods that you consume or the experience that you go through. So that's the word that economists ended up using. It doesn't have to mean anything in particular. It's just, for us, it's really, I would say that for economists, utility is whatever people try to maximize by consuming, by choosing to do X, Y, or Z. So it's so I'm trying to be happy. So that's what I'm doing. So basically, we're assuming that people are rational and they make decision to feel better at the end. And now, so total utility is the total satisfaction you get from consuming some products. But we don't really care about it all that much either, because what's my utility? Is it 10 or 100 or minus 2,000? Who knows? It's just a number, and it's impossible to quantify. What we care mostly about is what I'm going to choose based on what utility each choice is giving me. So what we care mostly about is marginal utility, the additional satisfaction obtained from consuming one additional unit of a product. And if one product gives me more marginal utility than another product, if both products are at the same price, for instance, then I'm going to pick the first and not the second. So insofar as it helps me understand why people choose what they choose, then this is how I'm going to use the concept of utility. All right. And what do we say? Well, we say that utility has usually diminishing marginal returns. What does that mean? It means that whatever I consume, the more I consume of it, the less happiness I get from it. So here they give you the example of water. If you're in the middle of the desert and you're going to die from thirst, And so you would really enjoy the first drop of water I give you. You would be really willing to pay a fortune for it. But if you live near a lake and you can drink whatever amount of water you like every day, then how much are you going to be willing to pay for extra water? Well, zero, because you already have as much as you like. So that's basically what we're assuming here. We're assuming that you well, maybe not completely zero, maybe 1 cent or half a cent or very little, but the more you get of something, the less you want to consume of it. All right. So here's an example. So yeah, not water, but juice. So here's how many bottles of juice Alison drinks per day: 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Alison's total utilities, the number of utils. So it starts at 0. You could say it starts at 1,000 or 100, and it's 130, 150. The absolute number doesn't matter. What matters is how much you gain, how much utility you gain from drinking each drinks. And how much you gain is actually the difference between the value you get from the value you started. So, and it's what we call marginal utility. So you get from 0 to 1, you get a marginal utility of 30. Then from 1 to 2, you get 20, then 15, then 10, then 8, then 6, 4, 3, 2, 1. And it could, maybe at some point, if I give you more drinks, then you're so saturated that you actually, it's a negative for you, and I would have to force you to drink it. But yeah, we don't assume that anyways, we don't get to that point, because usually people always end up spending their money on something else. So we never get to this saturation phase. So here you can see that the total utility always increases a slightly bit, but maybe it would decrease in the future, who knows. And then the most important part is the marginal utility that's decreasing. Yeah. So then, of course, why do we never get to this point? Well, it's because Alison doesn't have only one thing that she can choose from. She can choose from many different goods. And of course, if she gets only a marginal utility of 1 from drinking a drink, but she gets, then in the next example, it's burritos, she gets an extra 20 utils from eating a burrito, then instead of buying a drink, she's just going to buy that burrito instead. Yeah. Exactly. So consumers face their budget constraint. So they have to pick and choose what they buy based on the price and based on how many utility it gives them. So we say that they are utility maximizing. And they are going to spend their budget based on what gives them the max utility. Yeah, so here, for instance, so this might be the two following slides might be the more important ones. So pay attention. Of course, in this case, we have juice and burrito. So one juice may cost something and one burrito may cost something else. So you shouldn't think in terms of, okay, one juice costs, say, $1 and one burrito costs $10. So I should buy juice instead of burrito. So what you have to imagine is, we assume that you can split the number of burritos into as tiny fractions as you like almost continuous quantities. And what you care about is this extra dollar I have in my pockets. where should I spend it? Should I spend it in in buying one extra, whatever extra unit of juice it can buy me, or whatever extra unit of burrito it can buy me? And based on the marginal utility it gives you, if the marginal utility from $1 spent on juice is 2, and the marginal utility based spent on burrito is 4, then what should I buy? I should buy an extra burrito. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So here I thought a lot about how I could express this. So last night I made this graph that might help you see what's going on. So imagine you have some budget that you can spend. It might be measured in percentage of budget here, or in if you have $100, and then this is how much you spend. So whatever it is, you have this fixed budget that you can spend either on juice, either on burrito. Here, this is almost exactly like this. So this is the total utility from juice, marginal utility from juice. So, so it's, yeah, here we have burrito, and that burrito goes higher here, and here it's more juice. So here you spend 100% of your budget on burrito. Here you get 100. You spend 100% on juice. And what I've assumed is that your total utility is the total utility you get. Is the sum of the utility you get from burrito and from juice. So here you get 0 utility from burrito because you don't buy any burrito, but you get lots of utility from juice. And then here is the reverse. And what you see is, so if you, as you switch your budget from 100% juice to 100% burrito, then you get more utility from burrito and less utility from juice. But you see that there's decreasing marginal return from the eating extra burritos. It's this red curve here. And on the other side, you get decreasing marginal utility from switching from burritos to juice. And what if you actually can compute it, where you're going to see is that the maximum total utility, so it's the sum of the red and the blue curve. If I sum them, that's the black curve, and the maximum is here. And you get this exactly at the point where the marginal utility per dollar of burrito is equal to the maximum, the marginal utility per dollar of juice. Yeah, so this is sort of the same graph as before, just to show you that you have some fixed budget, and that what you can do is put a higher fraction or a lower fraction on each good. Yeah. So what does that give you mathematically? So it gives you this formula there. So usually we start with a definition of utility and maximization problem. Here we don't want to burden you with the math, so we already show you the consequence. So it's sort of something that you have to, I guess, learn by heart, or at least understand or remember. So this is exactly the same condition as what I was showing you back here. So this is the marginal utility you get per dollar of burrito that has to be equal to the marginal utility you get from per dollar from juice. This gives you the maximum overall utility. So this is a mathematical expression. So marginal utility from consuming X per dollar, so divided by the price of X, must equal the marginal utility you get from consuming Y. So it could be juice and burritos, divided by the price of Y. And then what you can do is multiply by PX on both sides and divide by MUY on both sides, and you get this same expression there, which is that in terms of y, then the marginal utility of x must be equal to the price of x in terms of the price of y. So if we were to set up the all utility maximizing problem, you would get this right away. But yeah, we don't want to impose any calculus on you. So does that make sense? Are somebody confused about this?
Can you do an example with numbers?
All right, so it's sort of what I've done previously, but maybe my graph is not that that large. Yeah. So imagine that the price of burrito is exactly the same price as the price of juice. Okay, one bottle of juice costs $10. One burrito costs $10. Then it means that you can either spend 10 on 10 juice and no burrito, or 10 burrito and no juice. And then the total utils from buying drinking juice is this. And then you would add the same thing, the total utils from eating burritos, but the other way around. So 0, 30, 50, 65, and you would see that if you add the utils you get from juice with the utils you get from burrito, then the maximum total utils would be here. And that would be exactly the same. But sorry, I cannot do one specific numerical example. I don't have time to do it, but
Sir, on your graph, what is mu/s?
it's marginal utility per dollar.
Oh, and okay, and that's what we have in the table above in the other slide, right?
Yeah, so here it's the marginal utility per bottle of drinks, of juice.
Okay.
But, so what you have to imagine is if, for instance, if instead of number of bottles of juice, if each bottle of juice was $1, for instance, then it's $1, $2, $3, $4. And what you care about is marginal, so it would be 30 divided by $1, for instance, 20 divided by $1. It's the amount of dollar you spend on each good. Yeah, this is just a graph. It's to show you graphically that this formula there, that MUX divided by PX equals MUY divided by PY. This would be MUX divided by PX, and this would be MUY divided by PY. And when they both equal, that's when you get the maximal utility. So what I did though is I did do a small Excel spreadsheet to compute this. So if it helps you, what I can do is share that Excel spreadsheet on the Moodle. So then you can play around with the numbers I input and see that it makes sense. Okay. So then many questions about what we have just said. So this is the, I would say, quote unquote, traditional way we understand consumer behavior. What you have to think is they are perfectly rational, meaning that they know what makes them happy, and they know what decision they can make that is going to make them happy, and they do it. So their preferences are already cooked in, they already know it, and all what I can do as an economist is change the price to change their behavior. So is that a realistic? Is that a realistic way of understanding human behavior? Well, not necessarily. It's a sort of a. It's a good model as first shot model to understand how people behave, but of course, people are not always rational. People can make irrational choices. So that's what what we see in the behavioral economics. So here what I'm assuming is that this is a perfectly good mathematical representation of somebody who's perfectly rational. But what we know is that people's rationality is bounded, meaning that sometimes they don't make perfect choices for themselves. They don't have time to think about all the alternatives that they could buy. At some point, they say, "Oh, I'm just going to buy that and not think about it anymore," or they can make impulsive buying. And what does that mean? It means that it's possible to actually make them change their behavior, not based on changing only the price, but based on what we call nudges or manipulations. And this has important implications for public policy. So I would suggest you go on internet and look at this guy, Dan Ariely. Or yeah, so that's behavior. Or also, yeah, Kahneman. How do you spell Kahneman? Yeah, so many others. Let me just see how I spell Kahneman. Oh yeah. Yeah, so very, very interesting research where they really study it. They're basically psychologists, and they study how real people decide, and they show how people are irrational. And this is very good for public policy. So I'm just going to give you one example. So organ donation. And nudges. Yes, I'm not going to write it down because it's very long, but just tell you exactly what the thing was. So the question is, should you give your organs when you die? So you could say, well, I'm just going to give the person the choice on their, say, their healthcare card. They can write, "Oh, I want to give my organs if I die," or "I don't want to." And of course, it's a very important decision that you get to make. So people are going to decide, thinking really rationally about it. Well, it turns out that no. It turns out that people don't really know what they like or what they want, and they don't want to spend the time to think about this thing. So this is what Dan Ariely has shown, that, or maybe it's not him, somebody else before, but anyways. So I think it was in the UK. What they had some form that people could fill, and one of the question was, in case you died, you want to give your organs? And then you could have a checkbox that said yes. And if you didn't check anything, then it means, okay, I'm not going to give my organs. And they found out that very few people actually wanted to give their organs. But then they look at some other countries in which, instead of having like a 20% organ donation rate, they had like 80% organ donation rates. So, wow, were these countries super generous? No, it turns out it's just how the form is made. So in the other countries, the question was, do you not want to give your organs when you die? And then people were like, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I should decide about this. So let's not check anything. So they don't check and they opt in. So it's just, and this is what we call a nudge. It's just the way the survey is based, or the questionnaire is written, that make people change their decision. So economists, if you ask that to classical economists, they would say, oh, the only way to make people give their organs is to pay them to do so. But no, it turns out that just changing the way a question is written from do you want to give to do you not want to give your organs was enough to change people's behavior. So this is this is super important, and it gave many Nobel Prizes for these. So yeah, now at that level we're going to assume people are rational, but know that they're not always rational. All right. So what happens when there's a change in price? Well, if the price rises, so PX rises, then all of a sudden, if you still consume the same thing, then MUX divided by MUY doesn't equal PX divided by PY anymore. So what should you do? Oh yeah, so it's written here. You should reduce your consumption of X, of juice. So why is that? Can somebody figure it out? So I'm going to say it again. So if the price of juice PX increases, then you should reduce your consumption of juice to restore this thing, so that this is
isn't
equal.
it because usually my enjoyment of an item isn't so related to its price? So let's say if the price of juice goes up, I still enjoy it as much. It's just more expensive, so I want less of it.
So it's but why do you want less of it? Because
the price goes up, so I wouldn't want to buy more juice now.
yes, but so the reason.
The budget.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. If the price raises, you might not be financially able to buy as many bottles of juices as you used to. But you still like juice, so you're still gonna buy some, just not as much.
Yeah, but why wouldn't I reduce my consumption of burritos instead? So you're right that
Because
yeah, go ahead.
The marginal utility of juice diminishes because of
yes, perfectly. So I'm going to go to the next slide there. So so let me write it there. So 1, price of juice rises. 2, I reduce my consumption of juice compared to burritos. I might also reduce a bit my consumption of burritos.
Professor?
Yeah?
I'm not sure I understand correctly. So when the price of juice rises, means that consumers are less, like there's less happiness when they buy it. They're less happy when they consume it.
No. So yeah, that you have to make a difference between price and utility or happiness. Utility is solely based on the amount of thing you buy. Doesn't have anything to do with the price. Price dictates how much you can buy of consume of one thing or the other. And then utility, marginal utility is how much utility you gain from consuming one or one unit or the other. Sorry. So let me just finish. So the price of juice rises. So what you do is you reduce your consumption of juice compared to burritos. And this rises the marginal of juice compared to 1 unit of burrito. So then this ratio is preserved.
Sir, why does it increase the marginal utility?
Yeah, so, well, I'm just going to go back to the initial graph here. So what happens is juice becomes more expensive. So you would like to, so it means that 1 drop of juice is more precious. So you're less able to buy it than before. So what you're going to do is, oh, I was drinking 9 juices, but now juice is more expensive. So what I'm going to do is just drink maybe 6 instead. And then what happens to the marginal utility, or maybe 6, and then you go to 3. You see that the marginal utility you get from juice increases because you consume less of it. So this will restore this fraction there. So this price of juice increases. So you reduce the quantity you consume of juice compared to the quantity you consume of burrito. So the marginal utility you get from juice increases compared to the marginal utility you get from burrito. So you preserve this equality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
So again, normally that's not the way we teach things. Here it's like we just describe these formulas, but we don't really tell you where they come from. But at the end, we get some graph where we have consumption and interference curves. So hopefully I can go back and explain to you what's going on more in detail. All right. So exactly. So this is exactly the source of this downward sloping demand curve. So this is why when the price of something rises, I want to consume less of it. And why when the price of something decreases, I want to consume more of it. Yeah, so this is what we have here. Yeah, so it predicts negatively sloped market demand curve. Yeah, for each consumer. What are they? Okay, yeah. So this is just the aggregation. It's okay. Yeah, that's something that I've realized a lot of happens a lot here. So just to be clear, here there should be some kink here. If you don't know what I mean, then don't worry about it. But if you think it's wrong, then you're right. This is just because here what we're doing is showing how we aggregate from individual to market. So what we just saw is that everybody, when the price decreases, are going to want to consume more of some good. So if the price of juice decreases, then I'm going to buy more juice because it's cheaper. And then my marginal utility from juice compared to the other good is going to decrease. So then I'm again at the optimum. And then how do we derive the total market demand curve? Well, it's just aggregating every individual market demand curve. So here we have the market demand curve of Arun, and here it's Bashira. And what I do is I add this curve to this curve, but horizontally. Yeah, so what you would have is that total demand is sum individual demand. Yeah, and so from 9 to 6, how many units will Arun buy? Arun will buy 0 units. So from 9 to 6, only Bashira buys stuff. And then from 6 to lower here, then both Arun and Bashira buy units. So that's why you should have some kink there. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. It's just for people who know a bit more about math, you might get surprised about this. So this is just to show how you aggregate individual demands into total demand. And you never add prices, you add quantities. So here, for instance, quantity at 3 is at the price of 3, you get Arun that buys 2 and Bashira that buys 4. So when we add both of them, then in total, how many do they buy? They buy 6, right?
So why does the price change also?
Well, the price may change exogenously. So we don't have to, so compared to these two people, they don't do anything about price. They just observe a price. And based on that price, how much do they want to buy? Well, if the price is 6, then Arun wants to buy 0. And if the price is 3, then Arun wants to buy 2. Here, if the price is 9, Bashira wants 0 units. If the price is 1.5, Bashira wants 6. And if the price is 3, Bashira wants 4. This is just the individual behavior. I'm not saying what changed the price. I'm just saying the prices change. Yeah, and the right curve should look a bit kinky here, but yeah, don't worry about it if you don't know what I'm talking about. Okay. Very important thing. So the change in price has 2 impacts. It has an impact on purchasing power or real income, and it has an impact on the marginal cost of buying one thing or the other. And these 2 things add up together. So why do I say that? Well, because imagine I was buying 6 juice and 6 burritos, and then the price of juice increases. So all I know here is that I don't have enough budget to buy the same quantity of both units as I was before, because the price of one has increased. So the fact that the price of one has increased has in some way reduced my real purchasing power. And now what am I going to do about it? Well, I'm of course probably going to reduce my quantity of juice, for instance, as the price of juice has increased, but also maybe my quantity of burritos, just because I'm poorer than I was before in relative to the amount that I can buy. And so let me ask a question to you about it, about these 2 things. So if my wage increases, will I work more hours or fewer hours? What do you think?
I don't understand why does the wage depend on the hours of like a person works? Like it's supposed to be the same.
Wage per hour. So if I make $15 an hour, for instance, and then it goes to $20 an hour. So will I want to work more hours or fewer hours?
More hours.
So why is that?
Because I would gain more money if I work more.
So I gain more money. So the time spent on work has more value. So it makes sense. Oops, it looks like a rational decision. Somebody has some other opinion?
Yes.
Maybe.
Maybe because your wage increased per hour, you would want to relax more and work fewer hours.
Oh yeah, that's something I should want to. So fewer hours because I'm richer, so I can relax more. So you see, there are two things that are going on, and my final decision is not going to be dictated by only one aspect or the other aspect. It depends on the situation. So if say if I'm just a student who want to buy a bicycle this summer, that's the only thing I want to buy, and I thought I was going to work for a month. But then my wage increased from $15 an hour to $20 an hour. So I realized that, oh, I can actually, I don't have to work for a month to buy my bicycle. I just need to work for 3 weeks. So great, I'm just going to work for 3 weeks and that's it. But as many other people have pointed out, maybe I'm going to think, oh, well, now that I can earn more, maybe I can buy a bicycle and I don't know, some other thing that I would like to have as consumption good too. So these two effects are going to be effective. So this is what we call the substitution effect. And this is what we're going to call the income effect. And this is whenever the price changes, these two things are going to play out. So substitution effect. So it's the change in the quantity of a product demanded, resulting from a change in its relative price, holding real income constant. So what that means is, imagine that the price of, let's go back to juice and burrito. So the price of juice decreases, but somehow that didn't change my overall purchasing power for goods. It's just that, so imagine that the price of juice has decreased and the price of burrito has increased, such that I'm more or less as rich as I was before, but the juice is really cheaper and the burrito is really more expensive. So in that case, there is really this substitution effect going on. So I'm going to want to buy more juice and less burritos. So yeah. So that's the first effect. So in terms of work, that's the effect of, so what's the relative value of 1 hour spent working versus 1 hour spent on free time? If my wage rate is higher, then the relative value of spending 1 extra hour on work is higher. So I'm going to work in 1 extra, more than I was working before. And then the second effect is the income effect. It comes from the fact that if I was spending some money on juice and the price of juice increases, then it reduces my overall spending power on either juice or other thing as well. So what we would assume here is, for instance, if all of the prices were to increase at the same time, for instance, if the price of juice increased by 20%, but the price of burrito increased at 20% or so, and everything else, then that would change my motivation of buying juice and burrito too. It's just purely as a consequence of my income change. Yeah. Yeah, so the income effect leads to consumers to buy more of a product whose price have fallen, provided by that product is a normal good. And so what would be the reverse? Somebody remembers? We have talked about type of good before. So if the income increases and I want to buy less of that good, what type of good would that be?
An inferior good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it's complicated. When the price of something changes, there's always substitution and income that goes on, and you cannot predict easily what is going to happen. Yeah, so the substitution effect leads to consumers increase the demand for all normal. Yeah, no. For all goods. So not just normal goods. So the substitution effect is always the same. If something is cheaper relative to the others, I want to buy more of it. For all goods, it applies. For inferior goods as well. Yeah. And the income effect leads consumer to buy more goods to buy more of all normal goods. Yeah, so that's true. And then, yeah, because the combined operation of the income and the substitution effects, so the learning curve for any normal good will be negatively sloped. Even more than that. Oh, God. So so we have a term that for goods which for which the income for which the demand curve is negatively sloped, and we call these, somebody knows? There's a technical term for when the price increases, you buy less. When the price drops, you buy more. There's a technical term for that. Somebody knows? No? So ordinary good. And of course, ordinary good or normal good. Yeah, so these are definitions. So it might seem confusing to you, but in a few seconds, where I'm going to be more precise about what we mean. So ordinary good means, yeah. When the price goes down, I buy more of it. All right.
Sir, I don't understand the difference between ordinary and normal goods.
So normal good, I'm just going to see. when my income goes up, I buy more of it. So you see, so normal good has to do with my income, and ordinary good has to do with my with the relative price of that good. With the price of that good, yeah. And what happens is, so there's this so some goods are normal, some goods are inferior, but all goods have this substitution effect that makes you might want to buy more of it when the price is lower. So if a good is normal, then two things happen. So first of all, so the price of that good decreases. So the substitution effect makes me want to buy more of that good. And also the price of that good decreases. I have more purchasing power, so it's a normal good. I want to buy more. So you see that the two effects, the income effect and the substitution effect, go in the same direction. Yeah, so I want to buy more of it. These are just definitions. Let me show you more what that means in terms of demand curve. It's going to be clearer. Oh yeah, so just before, given goods. So given goods. So yeah. The opposite of ordinary good. And what does given mean? Given from Robert. An economist. I don't remember, he's Scottish or Irish or something. Just check here real quick. Scottish statistician and economist. So it's a very, very weird good, such that when the price of the good increases, I want to buy more of it. So it looks extremely strange. Why would this type of behavior ever exist? Well, it's possible. You can imagine. When is that? Well, it's a good. Let me go back here. If the income effect, if the income effect is so large, it's such an inferior good that even though the price of that good has increased, so I would normally want to buy less of it, but the fact is the price of that good has increased, so it's such a hurt on my budget, and it's an inferior good. So if it's an inferior good, I want to buy more of it when I'm poorer. So it's a super, super inferior good. Yeah, so let me tell you the example. So rice. So up until like 10, 20 years ago, I think we had never observed the given good. But some economists have really observed the given goods. It documented in a paper about 10 years ago, I think. So what they showed is that in some countries, I don't know if it was Thailand or yes, Southeast Asia, when the price of rice increased. So normally you would imagine, oh, the price of rice increases, I'm going to buy less of it. I have a negatively sloped demand curve. But actually what happened is people's before, when the rice was cheap, people would buy some quantity of rice and some quantity of meat and vegetable with it. But now the price of rice increases, and rice is such an important staple of their consumption that they realize, oh, I don't have any extra money to buy meat and vegetable and other better products. So I can no longer buy these things. So I have to stick with rice. And since I need my proteins to survive, then I'm going to actually buy more rice to compensate for the increase in price. So that's a very strange situation in which the income effect of an inferior good, so in that case it was rice, super inferior good, was so strong that it compensated from the substitution effect. So it gives you a product with a positive slope demand curve. Yeah, so they must be an inferior good.
So just to make sure, it's because there is no substitution for rice at that price, like the price increase of rice was still less than meat in that situation, right? Otherwise they would have bought meat instead.
So it's the price, the rice increased in price, but the meat price stayed the same.
But it was still more expensive than the new price of rice, right?
Yeah, meat was still more expensive. Yeah, of course. Meat is
Okay.
a luxury good for them. Yeah, exactly. So another way of seeing different goods is a super inferior good. It's a very, very bad good, but when you're, so another example I have is, other example, my ex-colleagues. Colleagues, how do you write this? It doesn't seem right.
Sir, it looks spelled correctly.
Oh yeah, it's good. Okay. So what happened with this car? Well, it was an old bad car that he really wanted to change, but it kept breaking down. So the maintenance cost of that car was always increasing. So he didn't have any choice. He had to spend more and more money on that car. And then he didn't have enough budget to actually buy a better car and change it. So he was stuck with his old car. So that was a very poor situation for him. But yeah, that was really the definition of a super inferior good that he wanted to get rid of and he couldn't. Yeah. Okay, so now let me show you how much time do we still have. Yeah, we're almost done. So this is what happens. So the substitution effect is, okay, so these two types of good have a negatively sloped demand curve. So this is the price, this is the quantity. So as we have been saying, these two are what you call ordinary good. All right. And the substitution effect, substitution effect is always the same. So when the price decreases, I want to buy more of it because it's cheaper relative to the other goods. So you see that it's not just positive for the normal good, it's positive for all goods, positive or rather negative since it's a decrease in price and increase in quantity. So negative for this good, negative for that good, negative for that good. But what changes is the income effect. For normal good, the income effect makes you want to buy more when your income increases. So here, the price is lower. It means I have more purchasing power. My income effect means I want to buy more of it. So you have two reasons to buy more of that good. One, it's cheaper relative to the other. And the other is you have more money. So the two effects go in the same direction. For inferior but ordinary good, it's a case in which the price went down. I want to buy more of it relative to the other, but not that much because it's an inferior good. So yeah, so it means that the demand curve is going to be still positively sloped, but less so than negatively so, but less so than that good there. And then so this is example rice. Here the price goes from P0 to P1, decreases. So imagine the price of rice decreases. I want to buy more rice because it's cheaper compared to meat and vegetable and other goods. But it's such an inferior good that in the end, I have less money to buy it. So yeah, or maybe in my story, it was the reverse. So the price of rice went from P1 to P0. And normally the substitution effect would make me want to decrease my consumption of rice, but the income effect was so large that in the end, the consumption of rice increased. One thing though is it's only going to be for some interval of price. So the real demand may look more like this, for instance. So positively slope and then negatively slope and then positively slope again. So you never have some good in which the demand curve is always positive for all of the, because it wouldn't make any sense. Yeah. But for some of it, it might. Anyways, I don't want to add too much information there. All right, so we're out of time. So I think we're having good, making progress on that chapter. So we can continue next time. Unless there's one last question.
I have a question about the exam because it's about chapter 1 and 5.
Yeah.
And we've already seen those. Do you know when the exam will be available, or?
When the exam will be?
Right, when we will have access to the exam. Is it going to be in class or like on our computer?
Yes, it's written in the, so you're going to see it on Moodle. So what you have to do is connect at the time of the exam or just before, and it's going to appear in your Moodle and you click on it and you can do it.
Okay, thank you.
Pleasure.
What day is it going to be on? Exam?
The 17th.
17th, okay. Thank you.
So it's basically going to be a really long lab.
Yeah, I think that's what it's turning out to be. Yes.
Okay.
So the questions are going to be similar to the MyLabs?
Yes.
Are they going to be filling the blanks as labs?
Yeah, I guess, probably. As I said at the beginning, I haven't seen it, but I should see it in the coming days and discuss about it. So I'm going to be able to give you more precise information next week. Yeah, next week.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Professor?
See you, sir.
I saw on Moodle that there's a bunch of links. Are those for extra practice or?
On Moodle?
Yeah, like like the supplemental videos, should we
Oh yeah.
take a
Oh
look
yeah.
at
These.
them?
Yeah, they're good. I've looked at a bunch of them, and yeah, they supplement things very well. I find they're quite clear.
Like are those for extra information, or it's just like if you have trouble understanding concept, it's gonna help you figure it out?
Yeah, exactly. It is.
Okay.
It's hard for me to tell you, oh, don't look at them. It's not going to help you. I'm pretty sure it's going to help you. The extent depends on everybody. So I'm not telling you not to watch them. So I've watched a bunch of them, and I thought they were instructive, and they went deeper into some aspects that I would have liked to talk about more in class, but I didn't have time.
Okay.
Sir?
Thank you.
Hi. I don't know if you remember, I sent you an email. I'm in the rugby team, and you said I could do the exam later. Do you want
Yes.
me to send you another email like the day before or something, so you don't forget to give me access on Moodle later on?
So there are two scenarios. Either I don't forget and your email is useless, or for some reason I was distracted and I forgot, and then it's useful. So for you, there's less risk if you send an extra email.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
But I'm not going to tell you, oh, I didn't care. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll send you an email just to make sure. Thank you.
No problem.
Do you mind just flipping back, sir, to the substitution effect one so I can take a quick photo of it?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So substitution effect. Is that yeah, this
Oh
one?
no, yeah. Thank you. All right.
Sir, so for the exam, so we can bring a cheat paper? A cheat
so,
paper or
yeah, let me check
like a
what
note?
is. Okay, no, you cannot. So students are allowed to use a calculator and scrap paper, but nothing else.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
No problem.
I have a question in the MyLab, the fifth one, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Oh, so is it a specific question then?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'd like to end the stream there, and then connect again so I can help you more specifically.
All right.
Okay, so any last general questions? No, okay, so I'll just yeah. So I'll connect back like in 2 minutes.